The day opens with mist, but no rain. I see pink out towards Ullapool and mention at breakfast that I spy the sunrise. The battle axe snaps back at me. The sunrise is the other way. No kidding, just trying to build up the spirits. I haven't mentioned the battle axe yet, the proprietress of the B&B we chose while it poured rain non-stop all day. It's comfortable enough here, if they'd turn on the heat, and reasonably spacious if only she'd offer a place to hang our raincoats and dry our shoes. She's an unpleasant and inhospitable woman in the wrong business. But we survive and head out quickly to walk the bit in from the other side so we can tick off this section of the Cape Wrath Trail. You're listening to the Blissful Hiker podcast. I'm Allison Young, the Blissful Hiker, sometime professional flutist, sometime voice artist, and full-time pedestrian. Thanks so much to Lecky Trekking Poles and Belega Socks, also Summit Orthopedics, for their support. You might call me Bionic Bliss these days. My goal in sharing stories of walking long-distance trails as a solo, female, middle-aged, titanium-reinforced hiker is to empower you to learn to hike your own hike, too. It is a gorgeous drive along the coast, the narrow road curving around locks which reveal high mountains swirled in mist. Sandy beaches lead to bright green lawns and rows of white houses. Our turn takes us back into bracken and moss-covered oaks turning yellow. We stop at a stone bridge and a sprawling hotel and buildings including a rod room for the myriad fly fishermen visiting this salmon-rich river. Ted picks up one more package of food he sent forward, and we stuff our pack, not sure how long we'll stay out, since we have the choice of 2 bothies ahead. The trail now is dead easy. It's just a jeep track with barely any ascent, passing trees in fall colors, bright red berries and ferns curling and brown. We march along, lazy and slow, keeping our fresh-cleaned socks dry as long as possible. There's hardly a puddle in this road, which skirts a few houses before crossing a stream and heading up out of managed forest into the highlands. We both laugh when we reach a large gravel rectangle with a sign asking all hill walkers to park here. We could have just driven. And next to the parking lot is a white tin-sided building, the old schoolhouse fixed up as a bothy. It's beautiful inside, with wood paneling and sturdy sleeping platforms. The main classroom is adorned with antique desks and a chalkboard, though its most remarkable feature are huge windows on each side, bringing in glorious natural light. The school was used up until the early 1930s, at a time when the government wanted to ensure all the country's children received an education. A distance of 3 miles was determined to be the furthest any student would need to walk, though this didn't take into account river crossings, which one family of children managed over the swollen Oikle wearing stilts. In remote areas like this, the teacher often lived with families or in the schoolhouse itself. This one has 3 rooms, including the classroom, a possible storeroom, and a tiny space just big enough for a platform and chair. That's perhaps where the teacher slept. After it was abandoned as a school, it was used for decades as a bothy, but became increasingly decrepit. The estate nearly tore it down, having to drive by it every day and often with visitors, until they worked out a restoration plan with the Mountain Bothy Association. We sit down and eat bars, and I can tell that Ted loves the place, particularly the light and airy feel. But off we go for another 5 miles, this time to the lock that we could see from above as we entered this section from the other side. We cross a rushing and boiling river as it courses through sharp black rocks. A road leads towards the estate, with statues carved from a tree of an otter and a salmon. The trail rises sharply around a ravine and passes a crumbling stone wall, then right back down towards another river, where we need to ford.
Here goes. Okay, ready?
It's funny when the moment arrives when you have to get your feet wet. You hesitate before plunging in, knowing from here on out no puddle or stream matters. I can't see the bottom and the water is rushing, but it's an easy cross. both of us calculating how hard it'll be after a night of rain. Like clockwork, the puddles appear, mostly from streams building into falls and crashing through the road, creating mini wetlands and bogs. The rise is gradual, pulling us toward mist-covered mountains in Glendushery, where we left off the other day. No rain hits us, but no Monroes appear either. The land is rolling, but it's bleak and desolate. We spot a finger of loch before the bothy, at first mistaking the erect chimney for a person. I have my mind set on staying out here in the wild at the edge of the loch, where the deer roar. So we're disappointed when we see a Land Rover parked next to the bothy, along with an ATV. A dog barks and I jump. He's a small working dog sitting in the passenger side. The window is cracked and I talk sweetly to him. No one is here but sheep and fresh piles of sheep poo. The inside is dank and it's dirty. It's a stone floor with one well-built sleeping platform. A side room is stuffed with moldy mattresses, and upstairs are 2 huge iron bedsteads, only springs left to sleep on. We set up chairs on the grass, trying to avoid the sheep poo. I make a lunch of garbanzo beans and dill mayo, and Ted says, "Let's go back to the schoolhouse." I can't say I blame him. The view is less than spectacular over the loch and low hills that are slowly getting swallowed in mist. We're both a little bit skittish about meeting up with someone loud after dark, and those weird bedsteads upstairs kind of gave it a haunted feeling. So after lunch, we head right back. The sun peeks out for a moment, bathing us in bright, warm yellow, the distant hills contrasted in black. Sheep stare as we pass, waddling away like cotton balls on toothpick legs, their ragdoll tails swishing. We recross the river and contour the fall-colored hills, the clean white schoolhouse glowing like a beacon next to the raucous river. There's less to tell because the walk was so easy, but deciding to return is a lesson in itself of being flexible and knowing you have the time to change your mind. It's a slippery climb down to the burn to fill our bottles and make dinner at the antique desks, pitch dark by 7 o'clock. My platform is comfortable, and in the rebuild, the workers added insulation, so I'm cozy warm. And no one has come to join us, so far. You're listening to the Blissful Hiker podcast. In a series of personal essays coupled with found sound in my own flute playing, this podcast explores my journey of self-discovery as a middle-aged woman, sharing the sometimes unglamorous but vital truth about empowerment as badass people who don't need permission to blaze our own trails in this journey we call life. The wind builds overnight and the mist socks in, but no rain really, just endless gray. Still, it's lovely at the antique desks for breakfast, lit on both sides by the 6-paned windows. Over coffee, I watch the golden bracken bending in the breeze and a hawk hovering, absolutely still except for a few moments to flap his wings for balance. What's he doing, I wonder? Looking for prey is doubtful, as he's facing into the wind. He bends slightly and lets the draft carry him further away to another hover spot. Perhaps, I think, he's just having fun. It was the Scots who originated the quip, "It's not bad weather, just improper dress." Well, we're dressed in layers, our waterproofs and positive attitudes, as we cross the stone bridge over the boiling Oikel and push north, the wind straight in our faces. But it's a wide track, so we walk side by side and talk most of the way, often having to ask for sentences to be repeated in the din. The guidebook describes the fanciful river as the sun lights it up. I imagine it would be beautiful, but right now, the river is in spate or flooding, pushing hard against its banks. At least the trees changing color offer something for the eyes. We head uphill towards a farm. A man is driving a tractor through deep muck. which we also are forced to walk through. Beautiful cows take a good look at us marching past, then scatter, even though protected behind a fence. A woman ahead says they always do that when walkers pass. The rain comes, then lets off briefly, and I pull off my hood. Scotland's light never ceases to capture my imagination as the sun pops out for a brief moment on gnarled birch near a rushing stream. It's as if a postcard. The walking is easy, but we need it. Yeah, I'm disappointed we're not doing every step of this in order, but we're still out here, braving the elements and seeing what there is to see. The biggest mountains are far ahead, and frankly, we're paralleling a main road across the river. But in rain, we feel that we're in the wilderness. Except for the fishing huts along the way, and benches happily used when this area is bathed in the aforementioned sunlight. We skip by, heading to a lock where we plan to turn around. But just as we get to the end of the road and the beginning of trail, the rain really comes down. I'm not one to give up, and my friend Ted is an ultra runner, so even less so. But let's face it, this day is not changing, and the views, aside from the wee spotlight earlier in the day, are not going to open up for us. So we retreat to a fishing hut, surprised that it's unlocked. Inside are 2 benches and loads of chairs, including 2 for the dining room with velour seats. We avoid those since we're soaked, and we share a candy bar as the rain sheets down. I'm sitting below a small leak, but protected in my raincoat. Was the walk worth it? We both think so, since it stretched our legs, burned the chocolate bars, and showed us something different in Scotland. On the return, we pop into each hut, more benches and more velour chairs. The salmon run ended at the beginning of the month, so the place is absolutely empty. And turned around, the wind is at our back, and the rain feels surprisingly relaxing. We pass the pretty trees and the rushing burn, the skittish cows and the deep muck, and finally the lovely stone bridges where we snap pictures just as the sky turns blue and the sun appears again. A hot shower awaits, and a local cider plus venison pie. My socks are drying on the radiator, and I'm refreshed, knowing tomorrow's walk will introduce more steep uphill to views, more route finding, and more soggy, boggy walk. And you know what? I can't wait. You can subscribe to Blissful Hiker wherever you get your podcasts, and please leave a review on Apple to help the show get discovered. Blissful Hiker is on Patreon right now. You can support the show financially. Find a link to Patreon in the show notes or at blissfulhiker.com. Next week, we head to one of the most spectacular bothies yet. It's on a fjord in the Duke of Wellington's land. Until then, my friends, kia kaha, and happy trails.